Hello, I'm Susan Dunlop, and welcome to episode 12 of Coffee and Contemplation with Women. Today, I'm online with Lynde McKinley, a woman who is just about to become 51, so a quinquagenarian, only a baby one though. Lynde is in the province Saskatchewan, to say that 5 times. It's a province in Canada, and usually lives across 2 cities, one for work and one her home. Right now, Lynde is in lockdown in one of those city apartments away from her children. Very grateful for FaceTime though, having had to be alone for Mother's Day on Sunday. Lynde is a professor in nursing and holds a Master's of Nursing as well as a Doctorate in Integrated Medicine. I first met Lynde in India, as I have met a few of the people you've heard so far. Lynde at the time was studying Ayurveda with the Kerala Ayurvedic Academy, and before that she studied it with the Chopra Center. Lynde specialises in mindfulness, meditation and Ayurvedic wellness. On the other side of Lynde's life is Lynde is a mum to 3 children, a daughter-in-law, and has the new role of Nana added to her list in the last year, with Paisley, 10 months old, lighting up her life. Lynde has said to me, we've spoken in the last few weeks, she's absolutely loving this moment of her life right now. So I invited Lynde because we sat on the bus like I did with other ladies in India and had a few moments of deep chat over our shared, the Scottish side of my family, and that she comes from Scotland originally as well. Today just happens to be International Nurses Day. And in my past business, we used to put on quite a big hoo-ha over International Nurses Day. And I thought it was actually quite fitting that I would get to chat with Lynde today, seeing as that is such a big part of her life. So happy International Nurses Day, Lynde, and welcome.
Thank you, Sue. What a great day to be speaking with you.
Yeah. So do you actually do much to celebrate International Nurses Day in Canada?
Absolutely. In fact, I spent 2 hours this morning on a Zoom call, fancy that, with my nursing students.
Ah.
So right now I teach 4th-year nursing students, and today we had a 2-hour celebration. We each brought our own cup of coffee and our own treat, and we just talked about the history of nursing. So it's 200 years since Florence Nightingale blessed us with this profession of nursing.
Oh, very special year.
Yeah, it's a very special year for us this year. So we had a wonderful time talking about what Florence Nightingale means to us, and what an amazing impact she still has on our profession. So it's been a great day so far.
Oh, that's good. And what does she mean to you?
Well, interestingly enough, Florence Nightingale always wanted to care for people. And when she went into nursing, as we know it now, she went in with the idea of bettering the outcomes for patients. And back then there was no such thing as a nurse. Gentlemen would go in and care for people. Women were not allowed into hospitals. And she was the one that marched up to a field hospital and said, here I am, let's make this better. And so what Florence means to me is that powerful woman's roar of, here I am, let's make this better.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's nice. It's funny, I don't think that we've ever in Australia really focused on what Florence Nightingale's message was. I know we used to mention it lightly, but it wasn't something that we honed in. So it's nice to hear. Very nice.
Well, but again, I'm British, so of course she was English, which as a Scotswoman, I'll forgive her for being English, but she was a very great part of our education because she's English, she's British, she embodies nursing. So always a big part of our education.
Did you do your nursing in Scotland, or have you always been in Canada?
No, I did not actually. No, I started my nursing here in Canada.
Oh, okay. Yeah. When you were young, I've had, I think, 2 other nurses so far on the podcast, Ray and Linda Lee. And it surprised me when I asked them what did they want to be when they grew up, that they actually hadn't originally wanted to be nurses. And I had this vision that anyone who's a nurse would have wanted to have been a nurse all their life. What was the case for you?
You know, I don't ever remember not wanting to go into nursing. As a very small child, I was burnt quite badly, and spent quite a long time in hospital. And the stories that I'm told by my mother and father were that I followed the nurses around even as a toddler. I turned 2 in the hospital, and I would follow the nurses around and help them. And my entire life I've wanted to be a nurse, and I'm sure that had a huge impact, having spent that time in hospital as such a young child. I would play nurse. I grew up knowing I wanted to be a nurse. I've never ever wanted to be anything but. And it's been an amazing career. The interesting part is that I always thought that I would become a nurse and then just remain nursing, frontline nursing, hands-on, and never do anything else. And my career has gone so far beyond that, way beyond what I ever would have imagined. I started with a degree, and like I say, I literally thought I would stay frontline nursing, hands-on. I worked ICU and OR, critical care nursing, loved it. And then I went on and got my master's in nursing, and then I went on and started exploring integrated medicine and ended up getting a doctorate in integrated medicine and practicing in that field and exploring Ayurveda and mindfulness and meditation. And my world has just expanded that so far beyond where I thought it ever would. And it all came because of nursing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Wow. And in your world of what you're doing in Ayurveda, that's you run retreats, and what's it called? The Om Experience is your Facebook page? That's
correct. Yes. Yeah. The Om Experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you're still, as you're just saying, you've been talking to your students in nursing. So you're still working in the nursing as well as running this other side of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my income job is I'm a professor of nursing. I teach senior nursing students just before they sit for their registration exam.
Okay.
So I supervise their final practicums. Their final few months in education are with me. And it's quite fantastic. I love that part of it. That's my income job. That's how I pay my bills. How I feed my soul is the Om Experience.
Okay.
And that's where I get to expand and bring in things like mindfulness and meditation and Ayurvedic wellness and all those other pieces that fascinate me.
It's nice, isn't it, as we sort of we move through our decades, to be open to bringing those new experiences in to make life richer. I find myself, I'm doing the same thing, that I'm just adding, but not going crazy with it, just adding bit by bit something that I know is a passion of what I want to be or do, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do think part of that comes with age. We get a little braver and a little more open to those nuggets of knowledge.
What would be, so in terms of nursing again, before we move on to other areas, in nursing, what would be one of the scariest things that ever happened to you in your nursing career?
Oh, goodness. That's an easy one. It was when I very first registered, and I was a fresh grad, less than 6 months out of school. And I immediately started my career right into an ICU. So right into critical care nursing directly out of school. And 6 months in, I arrived on shift, and I was the most senior nurse, and I was going to be in charge that night.
Oh, wow.
And I remember thinking, oh, there's no way this can't happen. But suck it up, Buttercup. Here we go. And in the middle of the night, we had a full code, which is a very serious situation. Very sick patient, needed lots of hands on deck. And I remember thinking, standing in the middle of the unit thinking, where is the nurse? And then thinking, oh my God, it's me.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I will never forget that feeling of, no, this can't happen.
Fast did that happen in your mind?
literally probably nanoseconds.
Oh, wow.
But it felt like it was minutes of panic. And I'm sure it happened all in a heartbeat. And then you just sucked it up, buttercup, and carried on. And things turned out actually very, very well. But that is a memory that is seared into my brain.
Oh, goodness me. Yes, that's definitely sort of landing in and running at the same time, isn't it? Oh, my goodness me.
Absolutely.
Given, I think when you mentioned with Florence how she was that the picture to you of being a strong woman, and like I know, like in your experience, like you've had that, obviously you're a strong woman in terms of your experience and your knowledge and all the diversity that you can actually offer to the world. Yet I know that you have talked to me before about experiencing anxiety. And I thought maybe we might just touch on that, because I know we have other things, so it's a bit like light and darkness, but in this space, I just thought, often I find when someone says to me now that they're experiencing anxiety, there's a social media version of anxiety that's just getting bandied around. Yet I know for you, like, we had to take care in choosing the day that you and I could speak, that it was such a thing for you that we need to respect that. Can you maybe just share what that's like as a strong woman who has to sometimes go, no, I'm not?
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. It's almost 10 years ago now. And really how that all started was I had a bit of a traumatic event in my life, and went into a series of panic attacks that escalated to the point of full-blown anxiety, where I couldn't be in a crowd. I couldn't be someplace I had never been before. If I did go into a room, I had to be along the wall because I couldn't have people around me. It got very severe. And that is true anxiety. What gets bantered around on social media is, oh, I'm anxious, or, oh, I'm a little uptight today. And I'm not belittling that. That is a true feeling for most people. But when you have an anxiety disorder, it really puts you in a position where physiologically, there are days you don't function well. And so you're right. You and I had to discuss what day is a good day to do this, what day is a good day, where am I at mentally? Right now, my mental health is very stable, but I do have days where I don't want to leave the safety of my bedroom because it's a safe place to be and I don't have to face the world. And I've learned that that's okay. I can be a very strong and powerful woman and still need days in my bedroom with the door closed.
Yeah.
Those two things can coexist.
Okay. In that respect, so is there something that you would be able to share in terms of how other people address that with you? Like if you say to someone you're anxious, is there a way that you can have people sort of kindly manage how they approach that rather than just saying, I'll get over it?
It's interesting when you have an anxiety disorder, you tend to keep your circle very small. In that I don't have hundreds of friends. I have a half a dozen really good ones. And the people who love and care for me the most understand that if I say it in any given moment, if I say, please come stand next to me, they know that that's exactly what I need in that moment, and they come stand next to me. And I can have great days like today where I'm laughing with you and having a great time, and the world is my oyster today. Tomorrow, I may not be able to order my own food at the drive-in because I'm having a day. And so the people who love and care for me know that on days like that, they step in and help me. Okay. And sometimes that means just standing beside me. Sometimes that means ordering for me. And sometimes that means just allowing me to retreat to the space that is safe for me and knowing that it's okay to take a step back and let me be.
Okay. Is there something that you did to actually let the people that love and care for you know that how to actually do that with you? Because it's not something that naturally people would know how to do.
I think a lot of it is trial and error.
Okay.
I have my middle child suffers from anxiety as well. And how we love and care for her is very different than how they love and care for me. So it is very much an individual journey. And I think on the bad days, that's not the day to have the discussion. It's the good days when you sit down and say, okay, now that we've come through that bad patch, let me explain to you what it is I needed in those moments. So that then when the next bad patch comes, you're better prepared. So knowing to have the conversations in the good times so that you prepare for the bad times.
That's pretty much a gem of a tip, I think. That's what I was after. Okay, beautiful. Have you had any serious health challenges apart from that, or major life challenges, and how did you overcome or deal with those as you move through each one?
Wow, Sue, that's quite the loaded question.
And it's too early for you to be having a wine. I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, let me go pour a glass of red before we go there.
It's only 8:30 in the morning here, so I can't join you.
I've ridden the roller coaster in my life for sure.
Yeah.
And I have to say that where I am right now at almost 51 is an amazing place. And I love my life right now. And I have had people say to me, if you could change things in your past, would you? And my answer is no, because they all created who I am right now. But I've survived cancer very young. I was 19 when I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which is very atypical. Ovarian cancer is usually menopausal women.
Oh.
I was 19 and quite ill. So came through that. And then unfortunately have survived some domestic violence in my history, quite severe and quite did a lot of damage to who I was as a person. It's taken me quite a while to rebuild who I am. So that's just kind of two of the little bumps in my little roller coaster. But yeah, life has been a roller coaster. But even though there were parts of that roller coaster ride that I wanted desperately to get off, I'm really glad that I didn't, because today's a good day.
Yeah. I know, and you have got a very beautiful smile on that face of yours right now, so very grateful to be seeing that. So we've talked about nursing and we've talked about life. So in terms of life, when you're at the end of your life, what would you like to have accomplished?
Wow. I love that question. There is a great, and I don't even know if it's a quote, but a great saying that I love. And that's, when I get to the end of my life, I don't want to be in a body that's beautifully intact and coiffed. I want to slide into my casket sideways with a glass of wine in one hand, screaming, "Woohoo, what a ride!" That's what I want to have accomplished in life. I want to have embraced life fully and lived every moment and pulled every experience out of it I can. Wow.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So how are you facilitating that happening at 51 or 51 this week?
I think I'm being a lot more open to say yes to things. So even this chat with you today, had you asked me to do this even a year ago, the initial no that my brain was screaming probably would have been my final answer.
Okay.
But I'm teaching myself to go, yep, that's scary. Do it anyway. And yes, that does mean that sometimes I poke the anxiety bear and cause a reaction, but that's okay too.
Yeah. It's interesting when you actually, that fear, what's it called? False evidence appearing real. Like if you can push through that and run towards it, there's the thinking beforehand is often so scary compared to actually doing what the thing is that you needed to try, because what could possibly go wrong? Like, at least you tried.
Absolutely. And sometimes the things that we're absolutely terrified of are the things that we enjoy the most and get the most life experience out of. So you mentioned our trip to India. That trip for me was terrifying. It was way outside my comfort zone. I was flying halfway around the world to meet 29 plus women I'd never met before in a country I'd never been to, on this hopper experience that I had no idea even what I was getting myself into, and full on terrified to go. And I had moments inside that trip where the anxiety bear came up and bit me and pulled me back. But the vast majority of that trip was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I stepped into it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I think, I mean, we all, the women that I've stayed in contact with have probably had similar thoughts about it, that, you know, I don't know why we all found it. I mean, I'm in Australia and I managed to find this journey to the roots of Ayurveda. And then when I got there, I was like, oh my God, I'm the only person that doesn't know anyone. But I didn't know that you didn't know anyone. You know, that was my, I'm sitting there scared to death saying, please, someone invite me to their table. And I've definitely been invited to a lovely table, is all I can say, from having met you all. So yeah, it was pretty amazing that I stepped into that zone as well, I think. So in terms of what you want your life to feel like and be like right now, though, and you are someone who's very about mindfulness and presence, what's making your life feel really nourishing right now?
You know, and the mindfulness, you just hit it right on the head right there, is having embraced mindfulness and meditation and Ayurvedic wellness, all those kind of pieces all fit together. That is making me have a safety net in any moment, because even when my anxiety rises up, if I can pull myself into mindfulness, that means appreciating this moment right now, this one I'm in right here, not worrying about what just happened or what's about to happen, but right here. And that actually, number one, it makes my anxiety attacks much shorter than they used to be, much less severe than they used to be. It also shows me a path out of them very quickly, because when you're in this moment, you can't help but be grateful, because you're taking your next breath. I mean, your heart's beating, your lungs are working, you're in this moment. And so really mindfulness has become, it's become my savior, really. I mean, that sounds like such a bizarre thing to say, but it really gets me through every moment of every day, because this is the moment I'm in. And that's what mindfulness is all about.
And I think there's something, I mean, we've heard the word, I think it was before I actually finished up at my old business, that it was about, you know, trying to bring mindfulness into practice every day. But I think people were like, what's that mean? What's that mean? And I think their heads were still spinning with, how can I be mindful? I don't even understand it. So you're sort of trying to think what mindfulness is while you're trying to be mindful. Would you have any like very simple, say, 3 tips to how to actually bring yourself into mindfulness at any given time?
You know, absolutely. So one of the things I do when I'm teaching someone to meditate is teach them some mindfulness first. And one of the most simple exercises that I do with someone is find some nature to be in. And I happen to live in 2 cities, and I'm surrounded by buildings and roads. And so nature sometimes isn't easy to find. You may have to walk a few blocks, or a few, you might have to remove yourself from where you are and go someplace where you can touch some nature. So we'll go into nature, sit on the grass, find yourself, a chunk of grass where you can actually connect with the earth. Close your eyes, and yes, lots of thoughts are going to come in. Don't worry about them. Let them come and go. but just sit there and breathe. And that is the absolute simplest form of mindfulness there is. You're sitting on earth, you're smelling the smells around you, you're hearing the sounds around you, your eyes are closed. That shuts off one sense. That it's incredible how our vision creates thoughts. And so if you take the vision away, take yourself down to hearing and smell, you can take yourself into that moment very simply and just sit there and breathe.
Okay.
That's mindfulness.
Yes,
you're not planning supper. You're not worried about the bed you didn't make this morning. You're right in that moment, listening to a bird, feeling the grass. You're in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most basic way to start exploring what mindfulness means.
Okay. I just thought that would be good to share, because I know, like, when I say talk to clients in coaching, I'll tell them, I'll ask them, are you doing any sort of practice? Are you meditating? And say, I'd love you to teach me how to meditate. And I thought, okay, so I don't know whether the meditation seems like it's overwhelming in itself to even practice that. And it does take practice, and not to beat yourself up that you're getting it wrong or you're thinking, but to start with mindfulness before you meditate would be the step, at least, wouldn't it?
And that's exactly where I start is. And actually, I know that I've had a few of my clients say to me, when are we going to get to meditation? And it's like, when you can appreciate mindfulness, then we get to meditation. Yeah. So if that takes 3 or 4 sessions of us sitting on the grass listening to the birds, that's what we're going to do.
I know there was that lovely, is it Master Mahanti in at Ayurveda. And I remember they were telling me at some stage to stay in my room and do nothing. He said, but by telling you to do nothing, that's doing something. I'm like, what do you want me to do? How can I do nothing when I'm doing something and doing nothing? Oh my God. We're coming close to the end. I tell you, 30 minutes goes so fast. If you could travel to one place in the world this week with no limitations, where would you travel to and who would you take?
Oh, wow. The cabin, absolutely, hands down. There is nothing quite like the fire roaring, the birds chirping, the stars overhead are amazing, and just the absolute peace. That to me is heaven right there. The other answer that just rolled into my head was Costa Rica. But I think that's because I'm not allowed on a plane right now.
Oh, I know. All that fun stuff of choosing places to go to is just a bit quieter, isn't it, really? Yeah. Would you have answered that differently back in January?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before kind of this forced mindfulness, I would have been on a plane to anywhere. Yeah. I love to travel. I've got the travel bug. And so, yes, had you asked me that before we wound up into COVID-19 quarantine and lockdown, I would have been on a plane to a list of places. But interestingly enough now, with life being much more simplified and us really embracing mindfulness, because let's face it, we really don't have a choice right now but to be very mindful of every moment. Yes, my number one on my list would be something as simple as the cabin.
Okay. Yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to just going camping again. That would just be something simple. And I didn't even really want to go camping before, but suddenly I want to go camping. So
yeah.
Now, you sort of said what your favourite quote was, or have you got another favourite quote apart from the diving into your coffin with a glass of wine at some stage in the future?
And I'm not even sure that that's a quote, but it's one of my favorites, because I think to myself, whenever I get a little uptight with myself and I should and I need to and I must, I think to myself, oh, no, let all that go. Grab a glass of wine and slide into that coffin sideways.
Oh, dear. Yeah, so have you got a favourite quote, or are we going to go on to favourite song?
Oh, goodness. You know what? I'm drawing an absolute blank, Sue, of what my favorite quote is. I've got lots of them running through my head, but yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to stick with the glass of wine.
Okay, I reckon it's a good one. I think I've got the picture of it. I think I'm going with that too. So, more importantly, what is your favourite song, and have you got any fond memories that it brings up for you?
So my absolute favorite song is "What's Up" by the Four Non Blondes. And that song has been with me, well, just about every stage of my life. That song played when I was partying on the sandbar with my teenage friends. That song played at my brother's wedding, at his reception. He and I danced to it. That song has been a get in your car and crank it up and cry yourself silly to get over something song. Yeah, that's it. What's Up, Four Non Blondes.
Oh, wow. Yes, I love that song myself. I think I came across it the other week and forwarded it off Spotify to my daughters. I thought, it's such a good feeling to actually listen to. I'll share that. What I'm doing each week is, I don't think I'm allowed to actually tap a song on to the end of the podcast because that would be copyright. But I'm just sharing it up in my story on Instagram so that people can actually find the song that each person comes up with, because it is nice to actually feel it once they've actually connected with you through you being a guest today. So I will do that.
Fantastic.
And you and I can sing it out loud anyway, so it's all good. Lynde, so that's pretty much it. We're at the end of our chat, and I'm really thankful that you came on today. And how cool was it that it was International Nurses Day, that we seemed to collide with how we made this around your storms and power outages and whether you felt like having a chat. So I think, thank you so much. So is there anything else you'd like to finish on, or?
Just thank you very much. Thank you very much for reaching out, and thank you very much for being patient with my need to work through to a yes.
I would have waited for a year, don't you worry. Thanks again. And everyone, if there's anything in particular that Lynde covered off on today, she said that she'd be more than happy to come back and talk at a deeper level, maybe in relation to the nursing side, or in relation to Costa Rica, or how she's going to slide into a coffin sometime, or in relation to how she has brought this business together called the Om Experience, and that she's doing that lovely passion work as well as the work that has been with her since the very thought of who the hell she was going to be when she was a child. So so as I said, Lynde's more than happy to talk, as every other woman has said they would in the past. So thank you, everyone. And that's it for this episode, and speak to you next week.